Education. Could I get approval of tonight's agenda, please?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Minnick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Best. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This time I'm going to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Zitman, do you mind to lead us in the pledge, please?
Everyone stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you. Before we get into consent agenda, we have a very special guest around the table with us tonight. I'm going to introduce Mr. Evan Womack. Evan, on behalf of the board, we want to say thank you for being here and your presence being here, and we want to welcome you tonight. He is a non-voting member, but he is going to take part in the meeting here, and we're just glad Student Advisory has been represented with us here tonight. So Evan, welcome. Glad you're here, sir.
Well, welcome.
Okay, before we move on to approval of the consent agenda, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Swallows. I think there was a couple things he's wanted to mention.
There's just two things that should be in your packet that I pulled out of the consent agenda because ultimately they're going to come up in our operations report talking about ESSER and then also the bids for the east side paving and reconstruction of the parking lot. So I'm going to pull those out of consent agenda. We'll talk about those in operations, but other than that, all the consent agenda should be good to go.
Okay. So I think we have a copy of that right here in front of us. So with that being said, can I get approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
So move, Mr. Zeckman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Cope. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Back to Dr. Swallows, Student Advisory.
All right, we have other members besides Evan here with us. So they're during homecoming week, they're taking time out of a busy week to be here with us. So we'll turn it over to them and let them talk to us a little bit.
Can I just stay right here?
You absolutely can just stay right there.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start off on the last page. We've provided the recent and upcoming school news and club news for y'all to view at your own time. But we're gonna get right into our meeting we had with Dr. Swallows and Mr. Hobbs on Friday. On Friday, we discussed with Mr. Hobbs and Dr. Swallows about the application process for our new members that will be coming in. That has been completed. Those applications will be submitted to our teacher panel after we return from fall break for them to, we look forward to having 4 new members for y'all to approve here soon. We conducted our first lockdown drill this past Friday. Mr. Hobbs expressed this drill was a success with the exception of a few minor issues, but overall it went smoothly. The senior class is also enjoying the outdoor picnic area that Mr. Hobbs has provided us with but have expressed concerns that there's not very much seating. I mean, there's a whole class trying to fit there, but he's addressed that there will be more tables on the way. Lastly, for me, is we inquired about what is planned for students who will not be attending the homecoming parade Friday. He explained the students who remain at school should not be left with no activities. Choosing to stay at school is not a punishment, and described these plans for the students who are staying. I've got 3 options, one of which being in the gym for those who would wish to play basketball or other physical activities. Those who wish to stay in the auditorium can watch a movie or some sort of game going on in there, or the library for those choosing to study, read, or hang out with friends in a quiet space.
To continue with the principal meeting, I'm Shaylee Womack, and seniors will be able to paint our parking spots soon. Mr. Hobbs obtained approval for us seniors who want to participate in the opportunity to customize our parking spots. Really excited about this. And the student advisory members reported that all class floats are progressing and there have been no issues. We make plans to attend the parade on Friday to see some top-notch floats. And when I tell you, we have worked really hard on these floats, and I think they look awesome. Campus Life will be holding a meeting at the Pole on Wednesday, September 28th at 7 a.m. Make plans to attend this impactful event. We've got some really great students who have devotions planned, and we think it's going to be awesome. Mr. Hobbs provided details concerning the following. New capabilities of the BoxLight devices. He said that he can now send messages out to all devices throughout the school from his device. And a BoxLight device will be stationed in the cafeteria. We'll be scrolling announcements and information for the student body. And student advisory members were provided with a sneak peek of the new Warren County High School banners. They're going to look amazing on campus, and they really do. They look really nice. The auditorium is getting updates. New lighting, sound system, spotlights, Bluetooth, and wireless mics are coming soon. The student body will be provided the opportunity to vote on ideas for campus improvements, including cafeteria improvements, outdoor classrooms, or auditorium improvements. He wants our opinion on what needs the most help right now. The idea of brain breaks was discussed. Ping pong tables, games, activities, Excelsior were discussed as a reward for reaching goals and meeting expectations. More to come on that.
I'm Ashlyn Reagan, and I'm going to be continuing with the meeting. Student advisory members inquired about curriculum proposals for the upcoming school year. Members are excited to report that the student body will have the opportunity to share their ideas and input as the courses are offered at WCHS. Student advisory members offered ideas for getting involved in the community. Mr. Hobbs requested that student advisory members get a list of organizations and their needs. Student advisory members have a plan to start a friendly competition among clubs to benefit organizations in our community. More details to come. The mentoring program headed by Lauren Mansfield is set to meet in the near future. Student advisory members voiced concerns for those students experiencing issues or have ideas, but who do not feel comfortable approaching guidance or principals directly. Ideas were discussed with Mr. Hobbs to ease this barrier. Student advisory members will be looking into getting a student advisory Warren County Schools email, which will provide an avenue to speak to their advisory committee members. The idea of a bigger, brighter suggestion box was also discussed. The On to College program was discussed, as well as the Safe Schools program. It was expressed that the day and time scheduled for viewing these courses would provide a higher success rate in student viewing, as these videos are shown during the advisory period, which many students utilize for homework and makeup tests.
Thank you.
All right, questions for student advisory? I will clarify one thing. On to College is the new ACT prep curriculum that we're implementing, and they're doing that through advisory. So just wanted to let you know that that's what On to College is. And then there's the Safe Schools curriculum too that's talking about ultimately lots of different avenues that's being covered, and we're appreciative that the high school is implementing that in their advisory.
I do have one question. Either one of you three can take this. How would you rate the overall atmosphere and the environment at the high school now? We're closing in on the first quarter. How would y'all rate that, or how would you?
I think it's like much more like everybody's very focused on like they want to get school done and like I don't really know how to explain it.
I think with the new activities that we have, everybody's excited to go to school, I think. Like with the pep rally we had today, Mr. Hobbs got us all screaming and everybody wanted to participate. You should have heard the freshman class. Like normally, they're
all
quiet.
sitting down.
And they all
They
sit
got
there.
up and were screaming today. It was cool.
Do you think your teachers are buying in to this new administration?
Yeah. I mean, you have some teachers who are kind of like, this is how we used to do it, so they're not comfortable with change necessarily. But overall, for my teachers, in a sense, they're all adapting fairly well, and I think the students are also.
Good. Thank you.
Other questions?
You mentioned taking a look and maybe coming up with some proposals for improving the cafeteria. What is there anything in particular that, of course, scheduling is always an issue, but assuming that that's an issue, anything else as far as the cafeteria is concerned?
I think it's the structure, like the layout of the cafeteria. We don't have enough seating at the moment because we have so many kids in there at one time. So I think Mr. Hobbs is looking at what we can do with the space that we have.
Okay. Well, that sounds
How about the
good.
tables and chairs? I sat on them at the project graduation the other night. They wasn't very comfortable
No.
for a long period of time.
I will tell
Been
you
there
that
for
that's
20.
undergone a fairly recent renovation.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's not been attempt to make that a little better. We're just very limited in our space.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the cafeteria probably wasn't built big enough, and we probably need to look at that in the future. But again, just like any of these projects that we're concerned, it just takes money. So, but again, it's good. It's worth having the conversation because they're right. You go into any one of those lunch periods and people are packed in there.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And
of course,
it
this year
helped with
increased.
the seniors being outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing outside. Like it's pretty. We get to go outside and breathe, and people have actually behaved outside. better than we expected, and it's still packed in there, even with the seniors outside.
And it's about to get cold.
Those days are gonna be limited.
Well, I certainly appreciate you students and Mr. Hobbs and his leadership team in making that a reality. You know, people boast about what a beautiful place we have here with the natural scenery. Well, I think it's good to get you out there and let you really see the outside other than just four walls of a very nondescript building.
We get to vote on if we want outdoor classrooms. We talked to Mr. Hobbs about what that might be, and he wants to set up classrooms so we can go outside in the courtyard, and he wants to see what we could do with that. That's why we get to vote on it. He wants to see what we want to do.
Student involvement.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, innovation. Yeah, this is good.
Any other questions?
Thank y'all so much,
Yep.
as always.
Great job.
On to recognitions, Dr. Swan.
All right, so I guess I better go up here for this. Miss Sherry, come on up. So, oh, hey, you didn't have to leave on our account. Come on, you can come on either side of it, whenever you get on.
All right, so our classified employee of the month is Miss Sherry Waldron. She was nominated by Miss Shannon Wellman, and she doesn't want to read, so I'm going to do it for her. So what she said was, Sherry always goes above and beyond to help people. Not only does she help teachers in the school system, but she also helps people in the community. Sherry has a big heart and genuinely cares for everyone. She takes pride in her department and has improved it from what it used to be. She will drop everything she's doing to help you. And if she doesn't know how to do something, she will figure it out. I personally know that she stays over multiple nights a week to complete orders that our teachers and community needs. Please consider her for Employee of the Month because it is well deserved. I will echo those. She does spend lots of nights and weekends, and the Teacher Center has become a very popular place to fulfill an order, and her staff have done a great job at updating that. So our classified Employee of the Month is Miss Sherry Waldron.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Nobody wants to stay.
Facilities and resources, Dr. Swan.
All right, again, glad to we have several people here with us tonight. Dave Allman is here to talk with us, but Alan Hill and Bo Howard of Upland Design are also here. We've got a little PowerPoint up on the screen, so I'm going to ask Alan, if he will, to share with you about what's going on in construction in Warren County.
Thank you all for the opportunity to give you an update on our projects that are going on to improve the school system. You may have been by Warren County Middle School and seen the facade starting to come together. It's really starting to look like a building after some prolonged construction activity. Most of the restroom renovations inside the building have been completed. There are some underway. We talked with Ms. Rice earlier today, and she seemed to be happy with the progress that the contractor was making. Again, you see this, we also had an introductory meeting with the city to talk about parking lot redevelopment. So anticipated completion would be late October for the middle school as a whole. So
Not for parking lot, though.
not for parking lot.
Yeah.
No, sir. That's very, very early. Again, we just had a very introductory meeting with the city to see how they might look at some of our ideas. And that will be moving forward. But for the construction that you see here, late October is anticipated completion. So there are still a few components that have not been delivered yet, so that's a little bit dependent on timeline of materials. Over at East Side, the two new addition portions of the building, the new office portion on the front and the classroom addition on the rear are complete. And then that will allow the office staff to move into the new office area and the old office area to be renovated. So we're just at the start of that. So the new construction is complete, the interior renovation is not yet complete. We don't have a good timeline on that, but relatively soon. That should go relatively quickly. COVID testing center, We are finishing up our bid package, and we anticipate receiving bids for the December the 3rd board meeting. Do I have that date right?
December 5th, I believe, is the
December
board
5th.
meeting.
With the early December board meeting, we anticipate having bids back at that time. Just to give an update on the arrangement, the internal arrangement of the building, we've made a few small revisions just as the projects move forward, but a testing room in the middle, some offices over to the side, restrooms, storage space for tables or other equipment, and then a connecting ramp to connect back to the existing building where the bay window area is down the hall. Then moving on to Centertown, we are starting on the Centertown Classroom Addition project. For those of you that have not seen where this is going, the project will include 5 standard size classrooms and 2 half size or smaller pull-out teaching spaces here. This will plug on, as you're looking at the front of the building, this will plug onto the far right-hand end of the building. The exit access corridor that's existing that you see here will be continued out to the other end of the building, and then the separate corridor leading to the back.
And Alan, one of the things we talked about with Miss Cowan is if you go out there now, the playground area is back here.
Yes.
With the road being from here, there's quite a bit of viewing angle to the playground back there. By coming out with this, will also help cut down on that viewing angle to the playground back there. So.
In this side corridor, we talked about having that opening to the front, but there was concern that people might try to use that as a public entrance, which we wanted to discourage. So instead of coming out to the front of the building, this comes out to the back.
That was my fault, sir.
Probably mine. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Well, this might be a good time for me to, I guess, apologize to everybody for my little meltdown over the lettering on that building. I am still carrying the scars and wounds of that architectural felony many years ago when they hung that lean-to shack on the front of that building, which I thought was one of the handsomest public buildings in Tennessee. And I think this addition that we have, what we call a retro entrance for lack of a better term, restores a lot of the dignity to that building. And when I got to see the lettering, I think it's perfect. It reflects the original lettering that used to be on the front of the building, and that thin line Gothic I think is just perfect for this. But I guess I've been down the road of life a bit, and I've seen enough architecture utterly ruined by inappropriate lettering. And so I guess my concern was, and my anxiety was, that we had the right lettering. I should have had complete confidence in Allen and Upland Design to get the right lettering. I should have, but I guess my anxiety got the best of me. So I think the lettering is great. It has that sort of, I guess, what you might say, late Art Deco, postmodern, modernist look, but it's very readable. Do you have a slide of that?
I do not. I was going to pull it up and I hit the wrong button, but let me see if I can.
Well, I
if
think
everybody wants to read my emails.
Okay, your choice of lettering was excellent, and I just thought to have such an elegant facade, we needed a
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine anything being any better than that. The letter spacing is perfect, and well done.
I'm going to pass credit to where it is due. that is Mr. Howard's work here.
Mr. Howard, my compliments to you.
Thank you.
That's excellent, and I don't think it will escape anybody's attention that this is a reflection of what used to be the facade of that building.
Yeah, that was the intent.
So I think it's great, and I don't know when anything can be done to change history, but well, I call it an architectural felony, that thing stuck on the front of it. We needed the space, but this is what happens when you have an architect that has no imagination. Couldn't figure a better way to do it. I think this idea in the year 2022 was the idea they needed back then, is put the additions on the backside. You've got two inflection points in the axis of that building. It's been perfect for building those additions. But here again, you know, you had an architect that couldn't imagine anything different other than a lean-to shack. So that's what we got. But anyway, thanks. I'll get off my rant. Hope y'all accept my apologies for my intemperate behavior in that email. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing such a great job.
So I've pulled up also on the screen is the plan that they've put together for us. Dave Allman may want to come in and talk about it a little bit. But this is preliminary. This is by no means completed. Just like Alan said, we did have a meeting with the city today. One of our main concerns being the crosswalk here on the main part of the building. But as you can see, the design, I love how they've designed this. This is just a main flow all the way to the front of that building, as you can see, with parking lot spaces. And one of my biggest concerns has been this area of dumpsters and lots of other things, and we're working on some things there. So Dave had an initial meeting talking with the city, and so we're going to be working with them over the course of the next few weeks about these sidewalks, and Dave knows much more about the storm drainage than I would. Dave, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Just real quickly, we, several years ago, we upgraded this parking lot. If you all remember that, that's been several years ago. But the part up here doesn't really have any storm drainage or anything. So all that parking lot has just been sheeting water out in the road. So when we talked to the city today, we discussed with them the vast improvement that would be if we curbed all that and we catch that water and put it in storm drainage. And so we're going to have a meeting with them. They're open to discussion to extend their storm drainage up to pick up this storm water so it no longer runs out the road. The other thing that we're doing is looking to utilize, when you're leaving the property, to utilize what's an extra wide area where people park sometimes, but utilize that to have a free-flowing yield lane that would help get people out of there a little bit quicker.
Nice.
But as Grant said, what we're focusing on right now is trying to get this all dressed up back in there where the dumpsters are and the loading dock. But we think it's going to be a great improvement.
Very nice. Good work.
So, Dave, while you're up there, you may want to talk a little bit about the east side. We have already received bids on this one, and I'll let him give you the information, and then once we get into operations, you can vote to approve or not approve.
Do you have that email?
I do.
Okay.
I will pull
Just
that
the
up.
site plan, I guess. We're really excited about this because with the addition, the building additions at east side, then what we were lacking at this point was having the parking lots.
That's not real easily
Go to
seen.
the next one, that's a demo plan.
Okay. That's more fun.
Yes, okay. So at east side, as many of you know, there's been problems with stormwater for a while. Some ponding areas where water didn't get away from the building and so forth. So we're excited about the opportunity to solve those problems now. So what we're doing is we're going to be repaving. We're going to be paving everything, demoing everything, redoing the parking lot here along the side and then back in the back as well. We'll be redoing that parking area back there as well. But one of the major components is several years ago when we were looking at storm drainage at east side, we continued to bring a storm drainage pipe up to the ball field, and we stubbed it out because we knew someday that we'd need to pick up storm water up here if there's nowhere else for it to grow. So we have that in place. So a large part of this is going to be bringing a storm drain line all the way to the front, picking up all the storm drainage up here in front and getting rid of the water problem once and for all. Picking up all the downspouts, everything like that, so taking it all underground. So again, we think this will be a fantastic improvement for Eastside. We did open bids on the 20th, and I believe Dr. Swallows had passed out the results of that bid. We had 3 companies that were interested in the project. Copeland DRP, Tinsley Paving, and then also Rogers Group. But for various reasons, on bid opening day, we only had the one bid. It was from Rogers Group. But we have, David Northcutt and I have met with them. We've had a really lengthy discussion about schedule and about the process of doing this. And we feel like if you guys are interested in going forward with this time, that we think we can get this thing paid before winter time.
Is there any reason why you just got one bid?
Well, we only had 3 interested in it, and I think one of the bidders called me up and he said that he just got his days mixed up. You know, once that bid time is there, you can't accept bids beyond that time. So that was just a mix-up on his part. He intended to bid.
On the subject of East Side, it's been a couple of years since I was in the parking lot in front of the gymnasium after dark, and of course we're getting at that time of the year when a lot of people will be coming and going after dark. It seemed like the lighting in that parking lot was just very, very weak. Have we taken a look at that?
Dave?
Yes, we have. I've actually been in contact with Kenny Fork on that, and we were basically waiting to see where we would be heading with this parking lot, before we actually do anything there.
Well, I brought that up because if it involves underground wiring,
Right, yes.
this is definitely the time to do it.
Yes. Well, most of that would be on Kenny Forks, so it'll probably be overhead wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it was just, it seemed to me like it was just a safety issue.
Right, yes.
Being out there in that parking lot. If you've been out there after dark, you know what I'm talking about. So, but if it's being looked at,
Yes.
I'm good with that. Good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't guess there's any reason why we have to wait to operations if you all want to vote on that now.
Okay, well, like I say, you have the one bid in front of you for the east side paving, school side improvement. Rogers Group in an amount of $497,600. Could I get a motion to accept that so that we can proceed with this project?
I'll move to.
Motion, Mr. Judkins, second by Mr. Zeckman. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Any other questions for Alan or Dave Allman?
I do have one question in regards to Centertown. With the overcrowding and then the addition that's coming along, what do you anticipate could be our future? How many more students do you think we can take in addition? Is this helping that problem?
Absolutely.
Or just the
I mean,
current problem?
by adding 5 classrooms and 2 smaller classrooms, I mean, it's going, we're functioning currently with
Okay.
what we have.
Okay.
This will be, if you've ever been out into the upper grade wing,
Right.
those are smaller classrooms anyway, and their upper grade kids need more room.
Yeah.
So it's gonna allow us to move one of those grades bands out of that room, out of that wing, out to the new addition, and allow those upper grades to spread out, and then also in case we need, we're at 525 right now, which is as big as Centertown's ever been. So we certainly think this is a step in the right direction.
So hopefully that will alleviate future children,
Absolutely.
the overcrowding
That's
for
right.
future students. Okay.
I mean, there's lots of talk in Centertown
Right.
about new subdivisions coming in and
I know.
lots of things. I believe that's the case in Morrison as well, and I will be one that will say, bring them on, we'll keep building on. But at the same time, I do believe this will help us
Okay.
considerably.
Thank you.
And that is planned out of our ESSER funding that we'll talk about in just a minute.
Okay.
So, any more for Alan? David Northcutt, do we have anything we need to cover? Oh, roof bids. That was also in your consent agenda. Out of our ESSER money, you have approved in the consent agenda the 2 bids, one at Urban College for the old part, and then the Bobby Ray, the part that is
admin one.
the That's right.
That building.
So,
Everything at Bobby Ray has a new roof on it except for that building.
so all, those two schools will have all new roofing on it once we get that completed. So, that will go to financial management with the county next, but we are think that will happen pretty soon, so. And we have substantial completion on the roof at the middle school as well, right? Okay. Lots going on in construction, so, but we're happy about it. So, thank you all. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you overnight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay. On to operations, Dr. Swallows.
All right, so, appreciate, all that information. Sorry that it was a lot involved, but I want to thank you all. I sent out a survey to you all individually a couple of weeks ago and just talked to you about what you wanted to see at some of our board meetings, and we got a lot of good feedback around that. One of those things was to hear from our supervisors in this office about what they're doing and the projects that are going on, and so that just coincided very well with some of the things that are happening. And so I've asked Jeff Martin to come tonight to give you all just an idea of what's going on in attendance, and so I'll let him come up and share a little bit about what's happening.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Like to say good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening to give you an update from my attendance department in Warren County Schools, and basically talk to you a little bit about what I do on a daily basis. What I do is I enforce compulsory attendance laws. That's what I do primarily. We do have a progressive truancy intervention plan, which I give it to you, and it should be in your packets. And each school follows that plan before a student's petitioned to court. So the reason why that plan came about is because there's a lot of referrals to court, and they wanted to slow those referrals down and let the schools try to intervene and do things to find out what these barriers are with these students before we petition the court. So there's a 3-tier process. It starts out with 5 unexcused absences. When a student misses 5 unexcused absences, that triggers tier 2. All students are on tier 1. Okay, so when you get 5 unexcused absences, tier 2 is triggered. Guidance counselors come in. There's an attendance contract. Guidance counselor doing an assessment to find out what those barriers are to keep these kids from coming to school. It's a good idea. A lot of the schools are participating in that, and it's like it's by law, we have to do that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit also about our average daily membership. Average daily membership is 6,289 students. Traditional homebound, at this time we have 12 students. So that's an update from the last number I gave you. There's a total of 12 students. And you have a list of all the categories that they are placed in, for what reason they're on homebound. We met about a couple of weeks ago with our new judge, Judge Brian Moore, and also our new sheriff, Robin Phillips, and Dr. Swallows and I met with them, and some of the things that were discussed were all the active petitions that hadn't been served, and the sheriff's departments have been really active in getting that done, so they've been concentrating on that, and so we're getting a lot of participation in getting those petitions served, so it's going to be a lot of time in court spent in the next few weeks with myself. Also, we discussed this law, which is TC Code annotated 49-6-3009, which is called education neglect. Mr. Ryan Moore is really going to enforce that law, which is a Class C misdemeanor. Parent is found guilty of this in violation of this law could get up to 30 days in jail, and a fine up to $50.
And he's serious about this.
He's serious
too.
about it.
Yes, he's very serious. He one story's already. There was a parent that was already in jail for something else, and he went and added to that sentence because the child wasn't coming to school. So he has made it very plain that he's very serious about this, and he knows the importance of the fact that students need to be in school.
So, I'm getting a lot of parents calling now. They call and find out, I don't wanna go, I don't wanna go. Get your child to school. We have to get your child to school. It's all simple, so. But we know there's some barriers, you know, we try to work with the families to try to eliminate those barriers. We have to anyway. And the last thing I have in your package is, it's an attendance awareness campaign 2022. The theme, this year is Stay Connected and Keep Learning. This is on the attendanceworks.org website. This is their 10th year anniversary. I thought it was very fitting for all the things we've been going through. You know, stay connected whether you're in person or you learning virtually, and keep learning. That's the key. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Martin?
Well, what was that final, you gave that number of our average daily membership?
6,289.
Okay, thank you.
That's as of today.
Yes. Any other questions?
So, I have a question. So, in your meeting with Mr. Moore, is he also meeting with DCS, DHS, and because we know that might keep them rather busy in that situation.
Yeah,
So,
that was a separate meeting, yes, they did.
okay,
Yeah, Mr. Barry Dishman, which is a juvenile court officer, and they got the DCS and met
Okay.
with those workers as well.
so they know
Be on the
things
same
might be
page.
coming
Right.
down the pipeline. Okay.
It's a lot different than before.
I think the meeting was good. I think Robin and Jeff can concur with that, just because we're all being on the same page. Sometimes
Yes.
when you get lots of moving parts, it's just helpful to be in the same room talking about, so we can be on the same page, understanding the need, because this is different even than it was 2 years ago. These tiers just came in, and ultimately it's creating a lot more work on our schools, but
Yes.
they're doing a great job of being that first line of defense, because you know, the last 2 years attendance has been hard.
It has.
You know, I mean, attendance has always been hard, but it's been more of a challenge over the last 2 years. So I appreciate the fact that they're working hard to work with us and get people in school, because that's what we need.
This educational neglect statute, you say that this is new, is this?
It's been on the books for a while, yes, 49630009.
I'm sorry, what was that, 49?
Yeah, TC code annotated 49630009.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, educational neglect.
I didn't know, what, maybe that might have been an update of the old truancy statute, but,
I think it's more of just a renewed
Renewed.
emphasis.
Right.
okay, gotcha, thank you.
All right.
Each judge does, may focus on something a little different.
Mhm.
And he, I think, from what he told us at that meeting, got a lot of feedback during this election, even though he was unopposed, he was out campaigning a lot, got a lot of feedback about truancy and attendance and how much of an issue that is. So he did say coming in, that was gonna be one of his, things he wanted to do, and he wanted to use whatever mechanism the law allowed to do that. So, I think he's taken that had been sort of on the shelf a little bit and using it a little bit more.
Well, as, I would say as a non-expert, it seems to me like kind of human nature, if it's something that's a continual challenge that needs continual effort, it's like rolling a big boulder up a hill, you just can't stop. You just gotta keep at it. And appreciate Mr. Martin for keeping at it.
Thank you.
And appreciate
Thank you.
the judge, Judge Moore, for his attention to this matter.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Martin.
you.
All right, keeping along that same line, but also that needs to be approved at this meeting, we're gonna ask Dr. Shay Painter to come up and talk to us a little bit about ESSER, all of ESSER, but specifically, I guess, what she does with it.
Hello. So, when I got the message, I get to come talk about a couple of things I do. ESSER is one of them. So I learned a lot through this process. Whenever you get money from federal government, there's a lot of paperwork. So that's kind of what I have to keep doing. It's a lot of communication, whether it's from maintenance or it's from health and services, getting all those documents. Sometimes we have to meet weekly to make sure everybody's meeting their requirements, meeting their deadlines, and then every 6 months there's different documents that the State Department requires us to upload, so just trying to make sure we meet our deadlines. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to remind, but in the consent packet, part of that is we're asking you guys to approve so that we can move forward with the budget for ESSER 3. That money has to be spent out by May of 2024, and most of it is tied up in all these wonderful construction projects, and there's also lumps of money put aside for tutoring before and after school, and then we also, we did it last year, we did it again this year, budgeted for summer school, just in case the state doesn't give us as much as they say, and especially with the new funding model, we just want to make sure that we can support teachers and students throughout the summer. So that's kind of like the grand view of ESSER.
So what you have in front of you is a document that was prepared that you approved last year, but there are two addendums to that. Basically what Dr. Painter said, we're moving some money around for more tutoring. That's one thing that our schools have asked for, but also there's some things that we feel like are coming our direction that we need to be prepared for. And then what was the other one?
The summer school.
The summer school, right. So ultimately you are approving the same plan that you approved last year with just those two minor changes. So that needs to be approved so that we can move forward budgeting for this school year. So
Okay.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if you want to do that, and then Dr. Painter will give you another update of the mini hat she wears.
Okay, all right. Could I get a motion for the ESSER 3.0?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Cope. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Ms. Bessie. Any discussion?
Is this one thing, this amount of money, 13 million, is that how much you have left right now? Does that include all of the project that's going on within this 13 million? Or is that, I guess what I'm trying to say is the money already been appropriated for our current projects and you have this much left?
That's what's going into this year. So we started out with 18, now we're down to 13 million, but all of that is accounted for in that. We have to balance it out to zero at the budget, and then whatever we didn't get finished, then they'll just send us back and carry over.
Well, that relates to the question I had under foundations, that last block, academic space, facilities. In that ESSER 2.0 remaining funds, that $3,599,000, that is obligated money, isn't it? We've obligated that.
So yes, that's
Okay.
last year when you approved 3.0, you obligated it in that budget. We made some minor changes for tutoring and summer school, and that's what we're asking you to approve so that we once again can obligate that money in that direction.
Okay, so we're not gonna leave any on the table.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
We're not planning on it on ESSER 2. We learned that the hard way with ESSER 1. It was about $1,000, but
Well, they also moved the timeline on us.
They
too.
did, they did.
We've learned the lesson. They say September 30, but then they said July 30, and then they closed it June 30. So we will not allow that to happen again.
Yeah, okay. And one last thing under the tutoring, and this is excellent. I'm glad to hear from Dr. Painter that we've had teacher input on that. Having the money is wonderful through the ESSER, through the Federal COVID Relief Act, but are we able to staff those positions?
it's interesting you say that. We're always trying to get creative with finding teachers and people that could come and help tutor. We may be looking at going towards Tennessee All-Corps, and then that opens it up where we could bring in retired teachers or even paras. They just have to go through a training before they are considered that type of tutor or that role. And a lot of this money that goes for tutoring, one good thing from ESSER is that we can pay back GP. So while they're not having to wait on us, our general budget can go ahead and start the tutoring, and then we can pay them back.
Excellent.
Through using ESSER.
Excellent.
So
we've also talked about potentially doing some before school and after school tutoring. There's just a lot of things at play, and I would say to you all as a board, any retired teacher that you know that might be interested in coming back and maybe just getting a little kid fix. That's what they keep saying to us. They want to be around kids, but maybe they don't want to be there all day every day.
Right.
This might be the program for them, and you'll hear me talk more about that when we get into third grade retention.
By all means, yeah. There's a lot of talent out there that went to the house. And
Well, the before school and after school would actually open it up to our current teachers, and we want that to be able to happen too.
Yeah.
But through this all-core program, there's money available to potentially do it during the day. Well, teachers have enough to do during the day, so that's where we might have some retired teachers coming in.
Yeah, I think this doing it during the regular class hours is kind of really a sort of a non-starter.
Well, I think it's good because you've got some that can't get there before or after, but at the same time, if we've got several options, I think it would be helpful all the way around.
Good to know.
Are we anticipating a bigger this coming summer because of the new kind of
Oh,
wishy-washy
that's a great
state law?
question.
So, I mean, I'm
Great
assuming that our summer school program will probably be more bigger.
The test results from this last spring would lead to that, so that's why we're trying to anticipate it and be heavy on tutoring, and that way maybe we can cut down on that some, but teachers work so hard throughout the year, and then to ask them to come back for summer, we just want to, really target that population. That way we make it meaningful and best for everybody.
That's a great question.
That's a very good question.
Other ESSER questions?
No, we have a motion, we have a second. If that concludes the questions, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So moving on.
Yep, so
Okay.
Dr. Painter wears several hats, and she's got other things she can talk about.
The next part he asked me to come talk about was testing. So, our test results weren't as awesome as we had wanted them to be, but a good thing. Everybody worked really hard. We tested 98% of our students. We had 3 schools, Bobby Ray, Dibble, and West Elementary, tested 100% of their population. There were several other schools that were right at 99, and some of those situations where I can remember specifically someone came in and then they moved out of the country in the middle of testing. This was my first round as this role in testing coordinator, and I never really realized how much kids move in the middle of TCAP. So something that we put in last year, they'd used it the years before, but we put it out as a district-wide initiative, was this program called Test Hound. It really helped us keep up with our paper copies when we had kids moving, instead of having to worry about who checked what test out, because there's high security when you're passing around those TCAP tests. If any of you guys have been proctors, so it helped us keep up with that and keep the ball moving, and I think that really helped us test the kids quicker because we could share our documents that way. This year, there's going to be a new move where 6th through 12th will be online. So we'll have less paper, but our State Department has told us that's our primary means for the 6th through 8th. That's the new part. The high school tested online last year. We've been working really hard, Mr. Hobbs, at getting prepared for the senior retake for ACT. It's coming up October 18th. And they're going to also take that online. That's a new change. So we've really worked hard with his administration, getting kids registered, you guys getting the word out, making sure kids are registered for their accommodations if they need so, and being prepared to move into that test. But I think moving forward to the second year in testing and kind of having a better understanding in it, the people that were in the schools, they were awesome. I learned so much from them, and I'm not really nervous about the online part. Maybe I should be, but moving forward to that, I think it's just going to be that much easier to get the kids tested. We already do it for.
This would be a good chance to ask Evan about online testing. How'd that go last year?
Last year I didn't do any tests online, but at the start of the week during TCAP testing, the standardized testing, it was pretty rough. Starting off, we had a lot of computer issues and stuff. Mm-hmm. But now the current senior class, we all have new Chromebooks this year, so I believe that it'll probably go pretty well this year. Considering, because that was the biggest issue last year, is last year's junior class, their Chromebooks they were outdated. They were full of, the storage was full, and they couldn't properly function well with the internet.
Yes, we definitely learned from that big mistake, so we don't want to repeat that.
What's the name of that program? They
They had to power wash.
power wash it, yeah.
I always want to say pressure wash, but that probably wouldn't help.
They pulled them in and power washed them, and that just gives you a bad taste in your mouth when it comes to the computer.
We used it through Test Nav, and that's what ACT is going to be tested through. So we have a procedure ready to go ahead and open up those Chromebooks, turn them on, log in, and hopefully we'll have as many kids that haven't used that for a while. That's about it. You have any questions about testing? It's super exciting.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. All right, Shay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, moving right along, you have in your packet a 5-year strategic plan that we prepare every year. I'm happy to say that we kind of blew it up last year by taking on a lot of projects through ESSER that we had planned. So David has prepared this. I will say, and I'll ask him just to speak briefly about it and answer any questions you all have. This is always a tough thing because I think you all may be aware, every school wants what they can get. And so David has to prepare some priorities, and he's done a good job with this. And again, it is a working document, but I would ask you all, once he's finished and your answers are complete, or your questions are answered, to potentially adopt this for us, if you will. But David, anything you want to say about it?
Well, first of all, I would like to remind you to go back to this time last year, the plan that we had. If you'll remember, I said the 5-year plan that we had before that, we had to throw it away because of this ESSER, and we had to start from scratch, start new. I don't know if you've got the actual plan from last year.
It's in there.
It's in the package.
Not from last year.
Okay, the 21-22. I would like to go over that to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing this year. Okay, this 21-22 school year. I'll go down this list real quick here. I had in there west, paving the back parking lot, high school, GMPA system, Bobby Ray, the back drive paving, high school fire panel upgrades, sealing the rest of the parking lot at west, the 100-ton AC unit at west, for the air conditioning in the building, the high school annex window replacement, some drain piping replacement at Bobby Ray underneath the cafeteria and kitchen, Warren Academy carpet replacement, central office fire alarm, some device upgrades, a new awning at west in the front of the building, Hickory Creek, some parking lot patching on some holes that was around the student pickup, and I had in there the high school and Hickory Creek sealing and striping of the parking lot. Out of this whole list, that high school sealing and striping was the only one that did not get done. Okay, and I was surprised to know that Mr. Hobbs is gonna let them paint their parking spaces, so it's a good thing we didn't. But, I mean, that tells you that we've actually been doing a lot of work on these capital projects, okay? With this new one that I have come up with, if you can look at what we've got planned for this year, and again, I'll reiterate as to what Dr. Swallow said, this is just a guess as to what, I mean, if you talk to any of these principals, like he said, everybody's wanting something, and, that's the right. If I had a school, I'd want everything I could get for it too, But, we're limited on money. Money is what it all boils down to. We're limited to money, and we just have to prioritize as to what we think needs to be best, needs to be done first, and trying to get in order. In this year's plan, I've got high school, again, that parking lot, and we may can use that money rather than striping and sealing. We may can use that to be repairing some of the potholes that's in it, which they need to be done anyways. And, you know, we'll still focus some, as much as we can on that parking lot. Intercom systems, ever since we went to the new VoIP phone system, the intercoms in these buildings have been horrible. So we're gonna try to put an intercom system in there to try to get away from that phone system. At West and Bobby Ray, some roofs, we actually have, well, y'all just, approved the roofs for Irving College and Bobby Ray. Gym, the east side, the gym wall ceiling, that's been a problem ever since that building has been built. That, those open face blocks have, according to architects and engineers that I've talked to, they tell me that those blocks are so coarse that it just soaks water in, and it's a bad situation. I've got a plan of what I want to do to actually get that sealed. The middle school awning, if you'll remember, we started an awning project out by the gym where the bus loads. I want to try to get some more of that done. Try to keep those kids out of the weather as much as we can. Some school zone traffic lighting, we done quite a bit of those last year, and we just want to continue on. And what we're doing with them is getting them off of an electric meter and going solar.
Yeah.
That we're trying to do that, to try to eliminate some of our electric meters.
I don't want to cut you off here, but I'm going to add the last three in this year are all projects that you approved that we budgeted for last year. East Side Middle School parking lot.
Yes.
And then the testing center that you saw in
Right.
the capital. So
Yes.
that, we typically don't budget $4 million for capital projects. That's
right,
just
yes.
this year.
Yes.
So
Yes.
going forward, we typically budget
Yes.
about 900,000.
Right.
You know, and we'll talk about that again when it comes budget season.
Right. Are there any questions on this year's plan, what we've got planned for?
Will West and Bobby Ray be the first two intercom systems that you're putting in, or have some of them already been replaced?
No, they'll be the first two.
First two?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You answered the question I had, is why these intercom systems are so expensive. And I was thinking about old 50-year-old analog
Yes,
systems, but
yes.
these will be digital systems.
Yeah, right, yes.
Okay, that.
Yeah, what we're actually using now is these phones have got just a little bitty speaker, and that's what they're actually using now, or trying to use
Yeah,
now.
that's terrible.
In a classroom. It's just about impossible,
Yeah.
especially if you've got a classroom full of kids. It's, you know.
That's gonna be for every school eventually, right?
Yes, 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 I'm gonna work that through the whole district, yes, yes.
I'm glad to see Wes getting the awning replacement in the back. That's $100,000 item. That's in
Yes.
25, 26 year. What can you do to keep the wayward vehicles from slamming into the uprights, the vertical
post?
supports? I don't think there's one out there that hadn't been
There's not.
nicked
I
at one
reckon-
point or another.
I reckon every one of them has been hit.
Yeah.
And I don't know what could be done unless we might could, where the post goes in, put like a bollard post and then put the post up through it.
Yeah, I think
you
that'd be
know.
a real good idea.
Yeah.
That way the wayward driver will at least be aware that.
Well, they would know
They've
that
hit
they hit
something.
something, yeah.
Yeah, but they've worn out that,
Yes,
I don't know
you're
if it's
right.
aluminum or steel, they've absolutely
you're
worn
right.
that out.
Yes.
I'm glad to see also we're getting, restrooms on the visitor side at Nunley State.
Yes,
I think
I've,
that's really good.
that's been a pet peeve of mine for several years, and I would like to see that myself.
Okay.
Not that I'm on the visitor side, but.
Well, yeah, but you know, it's a matter of treating our guests.
Exactly,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, just as importantly, the middle school baseball field has no restrooms. They have porta potties as well. So putting
Right.
something over there where those folks should be able to get to that is
That's
important.
great. They'll have to climb a hill to do it, but they'll
Well, we got some engineering, we have engineers that maybe help us with that.
Well, okay. Is there, would it be feasible even to think about doing a small concession stand where you're building these restrooms on the visitor side?
All takes money, Bill.
Yeah.
All takes money.
All takes money.
Question to you,
The State Farm concession stand? That was-
State Farm concession stand. I'll propose that idea. I'll advance that idea.
We can put the nice lettering on top of it.
I like it. Sounds better all the time.
there you go, there you go. And all the renovations, I was thinking here, since the high school and Hickory Creek begin to be our two oldest buildings, I think, or have you took a look at, do they possibly need any renovations?
Well,
Cause I didn't see them in this five-year
Bathrooms
Bathroom
are in the ESSER
renovations.
project at the high school.
and they are complete.
Okay.
I will say that.
Well, the stalls
Yeah,
are complete.
yeah.
There may be some more things we do
Right,
with that. but
right.
yeah.
Miss Tracy Reislinger with her CTE, and she's always looking for different classes and this and that to come in, and they're wanting a little bit of an addition built on the CTE, but again, prioritizing, you know, I don't know.
You got the same thing in the cafeteria. I mean, we've
Exactly.
already discussed
Exactly,
potentially adding
yes.
square footage of the cafeteria.
Yes.
One of the things at the high school too is talking about traffic. We've been talking about that for years and years and years. Now that we have more land right there where you're talking about high school Hickory Creek, I think that's going to have to be a major capital project that we consider here in the very near future.
Right.
I was thinking about not only that, but the structure itself of both schools, roofs and things like that.
Well, the roofs have, they have been re-roofed. Both buildings have been re-roofed since they were built. The roof on them is about 10, 11 year old.
Some shingles holding up pretty good, David. I noticed a few of them.
There's several tabs that have blown off. I'm studying and trying to figure out. I would like to see a metal roof on that building.
Didn't we originally have a metal roof on that? And went to
No, it
shingle?
was always shingle.
Okay.
But like I say, I would like to see a metal roof going there. I know it'll be expensive, but I believe it'll be better in the long run.
Longevity.
Yes, yes,
I think that both those campuses need quite a bit of study for.
yes, yes.
Because again, we've talked about lots of things, track,
Oh, yeah.
traffic issues,
Yeah.
so. I agree with you. We've got a lot to talk about at those two campuses.
Have you conceptually thought about, with this added land at the high school in front of Hickory Creek, about some lane configurations or doing something different to facilitate the traffic?
We've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and talked about it again, and so ultimately the concern, I talked to Dave Allman, and there's just two main roads. I mean, you've got Vervilla where everybody's got to come in and off for both campuses, and so it just makes it really tough. We've talked about maybe redoing some things to where we can get that traffic off of Vervilla back inside, so that maybe we can allow to free that up a little bit, but. I think the new land, that's ultimately what we talked about when we purchased that, maybe building an entrance and exit for Hickory Creek there. I still think that's probably something we're going to have to do in the near future. But again, that's going to take some money, and we'll just have to talk about those priorities as we move forward.
The biggest problem that I see with that is, I mean, you can add more lanes and everything on campus, but at the end of the line, you're still going out to a 2-lane road.
So true, so true.
And this controlled access too, because of the interchange.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's kind of a drawback there. You can't break that controlled access fee, so that limits you some.
Any more questions about the 5-year plan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you all would like to adopt that or make any changes.
Well, I'll move, if we need a motion on that, I'll move to adopt the revised and updated 5-year strategic plan.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Zeckman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Ms. Best. Any discussion on the changes on the 5-year strategic plan? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Swallows.
All right, so I want to give you a really quick update, and Mr. Cope has already talked about this a little bit, but here very, very soon, we're going to be putting a letter out to specifically our third grade families, because as you all know, TCA 49-6-3115 was passed this past year, which is better known as the third grade retention law. Ultimately, what it says is any third grade student that is not proficient on the ELA portion of the TCAP will be retained in the third grade with some exceptions. But ultimately, what the important part of that is that the goal behind it is for all of our third grade students to be meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA on the TCAP tests. So I will say this: we certainly understand and agree with that goal. We want our third grade students to be reading proficiently because that is extremely important. We know that those are formative years, pre-K through third grade, for them to be able to establish and be able to read proficiently. Because once we also see the evidence behind that is if they are not proficient by third grade, then they're playing catch up all the way through, and it's really tough for them to catch on. So I do applaud the thought behind this. Now, just like was said, one of the biggest concerns, and you've probably seen the news articles, but ultimately, if that were to happen today, in Tennessee, almost 70% of all third graders would be retained. All right? That's a lot of third graders staying in third grade for one more year. All right? And so that creates some issues for school systems. We're going to have large third grade classes. We're going to have small fourth grade classes. But ultimately, there are some concerns behind that. Now, understand that there are some exceptions to that. A student who is an ELL student, an English language learner, and they have received less than 2 years of ELA instruction, they could be exempted from that. A student who was previously retained in grades kindergarten through 3, they would not be able to be retained. Or a student who has a disability or suspected disability that impacts reading, that would allow that student to move on. However, there are also a few other ones. The student could be retested before the beginning of new school year and scores proficient in ELA. I'm going to be honest with you all, I don't even know how that works. We've never retested in the summer before, to my knowledge, especially on a TCAP. The student could attend the Learning Loss Camp, which is what we call the Acceleration Academy, which is in all of our schools. They must maintain a 90% attendance rate at that camp, and then they would have to take the post-test administered to the student. At the end of that, we do that already, and they must demonstrate adequate growth. Or they could be involved if the student is assigned a tutor through the Tennessee All-Corps, and we brought that up just a few minutes ago. That is not something we were previously doing. We were doing that tutoring locally through our ESSER funding, but I will tell you, when we got to tearing apart this law, we felt like we've got to get involved with this, so we've already contacted the Department of Education about being able to join the Tennessee All-Corps program, and they're willing to bring us on with that, and so we're trying to work through what that looks like. But that student would have to be involved in that with tutoring services for the entirety of the upcoming school year. So that student would have to have low dosage tutoring for their entire fourth grade school year. All right. And so again, talk about personnel, talk about lots of things. So what you have in your packet is what a lot of school systems are adopting, and we have for you tonight to consider a resolution urging the General Assembly to amend this law to allow for the local education association, which would be us, to make these detention decisions. Because ultimately, I'll just give you an example of one of the things that concerns us is that we take universal screeners and we do lots of things around reading all year long. And lots of times we have students that do well on these universal screeners in reading. But guess what? They get on the TCAP, and there's a lot of pressure on that TCAP, and perhaps they don't perform at meeting or exceeding expectations. It's a lot of pressure on a little third grader to go in knowing that whether they get to go on to fourth grade or not depends on how they perform on that third grade ELA exam. So ultimately, this letter is going to go out to our families because we want them to be informed about what's going on. But two, we're trying to encourage them to reach out with their teachers. Let's begin a dialogue already about where their student is and what the supports that we are giving them in order to get them to meeting or exceeding expectations. I want to reiterate, that's where we want them to be. But we also have to be realistic and understanding that not more than half are not there currently. So you've been able to see that resolution. Again, that's for your consideration of adoption. Ultimately, I wanted to spend some time talking about it tonight because, one, I want our public to know, I want you all to know that this is a real thing. This is this year. This is this year's third graders are affected by this law. If the General Assembly does not act in its in their upcoming session beginning in January, then there will be some third grade students that are retained based on this. So there is a lot of confusion, just like you said. I think you used the term wish-washy law, which is very possible. There are still things that are being talked about. There are still things that are hopefully going to be cleaned up, but we can only work with what we can work with. We have to work with what the law says. So we want third grade families to be aware. Teachers have talked about this. They are uncomfortable with it. Obviously, it's a lot of pressure on them too, because what's going to happen when that test comes back? Most of the time, a lot of heat's going to be put on the school system and on our teachers as well. So we would like to see some amendments made. We would like for them to give us a little bit more flexibility around this. I do want the legislators to know that we do support the goal. We want students to be proficient, but ultimately, one of the things that I've heard is that right now you understand there are four levels from when students get their test results back. There's approaching, meeting expectations, and exceeding expectations. One of the ideas is to lower it from meeting expectations to approaching. That would give a little bit more flexibility around this. That's been talked about, but ultimately we need a little bit more flexibility in the school system. So I will leave the resolution for your consideration, but happy to answer any questions around that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, move the discussion along. I'm going to move for adoption by the Warren County Board of School Commissioners of Resolution 2022-2.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second on this adoption?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Judkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I want to say that I agree with Dr. Swallows. I think the intention behind this was good, but I think they rushed to impose a one-size-fits-all solution on every school district in Tennessee, and I can't imagine that would be workable with that kind of straitjacket application. It would be I guess the word is disaster to have that many third graders retained. It would just be a major disruption to our educational process. It would be that's the word I need, nightmare. Yeah, it would be.
Well, you know,
parents, teachers, and everybody.
You know, this is an attention getter for everybody, because maybe it's a reminder for us as parents to be more involved with our students. If I know my child's going to be retained, maybe I need to start reading a little bit more after school. Don't put it all on the teachers. Yeah. There's a work to be done at home. I mean, I don't know.
In that letter, we outline some strategies. We've all heard we read 20 minutes with your child every night. Sure. I mean, that's something as simple as you can do. I mean, we're all busy. It probably can't happen every night, but you're make a great point. It is something that we want families to know, and we want to work with them to do that. I will also just say, I don't think it took this law for us to decide, hey, we want kids to read proficiently.
Yeah.
We wanted them to read
Not a new
proficiently
thing.
before.
Yeah.
It's just not happening at the rate that we'd hoped to.
I just think this group of kids this particular year, they've not had a real school year. Third grade is so important. The last 2 years have not been. So I don't want this to be the forgotten class that we just pass over and say, okay, just go ahead, and this is gonna carry with them throughout their school career and throughout their career in life. And so I just don't want us to, and I think that's probably the point of this law, was to, let's not leave this class behind. Because, this is gonna be the most important class that's not had a regular school year. Let's not let them get behind this year and continue to let them get behind.
Well, that's the
The
problem.
COVID class, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, that the people the professional educators know, that if they're not reading on grade level by the end of grade 3, the probability that they will ever catch up diminishes. It just diminishes greatly, and you're just setting your son or daughter up for frustration and maybe failure when they advance on up through the grades. It just doesn't get better.
I
If
agree.
you read, you'll fail the other subjects.
Yeah.
But this is an important part for us to get these parents involved in saying, let's get ahead of this, and
Right.
it's not just it's just not our teachers, responsibility, it's parents too, to make sure their children are doing what they need to be, and where they need to be.
I appreciate you all's leadership in saying that.
Parent advisory a few years ago with Mr. Cox, we done a study. If you're not reading on a third grade level, it takes to 7th grade, and it's below 50% the ones that catch up if you're not reading on third grade level.
I agree with Dr. Swallows. Since we know what the challenge is, I'd much rather do for Dr. Swallows and his team to provide the leadership to do what needs to be done now, rather than having a gun at our back. I think this is the way to do it. Let's be proactive.
Thank you all. That's it I have for operations, I believe.
Okay, there's nothing in curriculum and achievement. Other businesses, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Swallows for resolution 2022-1.
And I will yield to Mr. Zeckman on that one. I believe he has brought on that resolution.
It's pretty innocuous, because we're, as a Warren County Board of School Commissioners, we're not gonna be able to steer the course of the Tennessee Valley Authority, but we have bought into the program for the grants, the 100% grants from the EPA for the electric school buses, 10 of them in our application. We may not accept all 10 of them. The issue is, and I think we pointed out with the graphics a couple of meetings back, about that over 200% surcharge. I don't know how else to explain it. It's an excess charge that we paid for motor fuel, for buses, for diesel fuel. And I understand that market dynamics, we had a constricted supply, and so prices just went through the roof. Everybody that filled up your car, you saw how fast those digital numbers were changing when you were filling up. If we are going to make the transition to the electric vehicles, we have an opportunity to power our buses not with fossil fuels that a very few rich and powerful corporations can control, which is our situation now. If you look at the sky high profits that the major oil producers and distributors made early on in 2022, you wonder, why were we paying all this? The cost of extracting the oil, refining it, and shipping it hadn't changed all that much. So why are we paying, 220% of what we had been paying? Well, it goes into excess profits. And if you are an investor in an oil company, or you're an oil company CEO, that's wonderful. But it has all of us here at the local level paying the freight for that. I just think that we need some independence. And with the EVs, we can get independence. If we can get TVA out of its comatose state and into the modern era. years ago, when I was growing up, TVA was called the yardstick for technology and pricing of electricity. No longer the case, no longer true. And it's, for whatever reason, I won't speculate on that, but for whatever reason, they've wanted to stay tied to 100-year-old technology to a large extent and not update to modern technology. The other issue, and we talked about this, was the availability of fuel at whatever price. And I think all of us feel some remorse over seeing the United States President having to go basically begging to a murderous dictator who rules Saudi Arabia, one of the major oil producers, to get them to loosen up on oil production. And then you have this genocidal dictator, Putin, in Russia, who's launched an invasion of a neighboring country that's affected oil prices. And, you know, if we have the opportunity to get some independence and get isolated from those effects, I think that we are remiss if we don't ask for it. So all this resolution does is just gently, politely, humbly ask TVA to get busy about adopting more renewable, non-fossil energy sources. So that's what the resolution does.
Okay.
So I'm going to move for adoption of resolution 2022-1.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to board recognition. Once a year, as we've come to that point where the board reorganizes. And we'll start with chair, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion for chairman for the 2020.
I'd like to recommend Mr. Judkins for chairman of the board.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Ladies first.
You know, I think Mr. Judkins is a fine nomination. I do think, having been in chair position 2 years in a row, it took a good year, even though Mr. Judkins has done that before, it took a good year to get your bearings and to know how it functions. So I wanted to recommend Tommy Colwell for chair.
Okay.
If that's a nomination, I'll second, and I'll say this on seconding, and I agree. Mr. Judkins and I are friends from way, way back. We're the old timers around here. There's not a single person on this board who doesn't have the capacity and the intelligence and ability to serve as chair. My concern is that with the new state funding model, the TISA model, and with efforts that the unrelenting efforts to privatize public education, to divert public education money into private enterprises, I think continuity would be useful. And I think continuity, like Ms. Beth says, you know, it takes a year to kind of get your feet under you, but I'm going to support, and here again, with love in my heart to Mr. Judkins, I'm supporting Mr. Colwell for another term as chair.
Okay. Roll call vote. Robin?
Sure. I mean, I don't think you have to, but you
We did
do.
that last year.
Okay.
Okay, so we have
Majority of the board.
Okay, so we have two nominations on the floor. I will start with Miss Bess.
Do I say the name or what?
I believe you just,
Yeah,
if this is a vote,
that's-
if it's a majority vote, then you just say the name of one of the two that you
So
support.
you'll need, it'll be 4 out of 6 or
Tommy Colwell.
or whatever.
Miss Bess is Tommy Colwell. Mr. Cope?
Tommy Colwell.
Mr. Judkins?
Tommy Colwell.
Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Colwell.
Mr. Zedman?
Mr. Colwell.
I will abstain. Motion carries. For vice chair, going along with what Mr. Zeckman said, the continuity and everything, and his years to service and everything, I'm going to nominate Mr. Zeckman as vice chair.
I'll second.
Roll call, Ms. Bess. Well, any other nominations from the floor? Ms. Best,
Mr. Zeigman.
Mr. Cope,
Mr. Zeckman.
Mr. Judkins,
Mr. Zeckman.
Mr. Zeckman,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Zeckman. All right, there's your board, your chair, and your vice chair. On behalf, well, from my perspective, if I can ever do anything to improve this position, to improve the transparency, you have my number, you have my email, please feel free to call me. If there's ever anything that I need to do to improve or do better in this position, I encourage and invite your concerns, questions, or suggestions at any given time. I just want to throw that out there. I do a couple of things I do want to mention. You know, it's been a couple years since we got to have Grandparents' Day. Man, what a treat that was. I know, I think Chris was at Marson. I started at Deverell. We ended up at Centertown. You know, and I want to do a shout out to the nutrition, to teachers' assistants, you know, custodians, maintenance. Like I say, it took everybody to make that possible. And what a treat it was to see those buildings full with grandparents and taking pictures with their grandchildren.
Morrison had over 300 and Centertown over 500 grandparents that was fed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just the sheer numbers and, like you said, the staff that made all that happen.
And I know there's a lot of other exciting things, like I say, high school homecoming week, a lot of things that hadn't got to happen, that hasn't happened in a couple years. Shout out to all those, Mr. Hobbs and his staff, for, you know, putting those together and putting those smiling faces on those kids. And like I say, I do think some of your assistants, principals, and staff was getting a little bit as excited as some of the students was in participating, maybe along with yourself there, Mr. Hobbs, but
That's a good thing.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. One other thing I do want to do, if I could ask Miss Dina to come forward, please. We changed our language a little bit on this presentation. You know, when we got the word, it was official retirement, but I think there has been agreement so that you can stay on as our board secretary. So this is a retirement / thank you gift on behalf of the board.
That's
like
so
I say.
nice.
And Miss Sue and Miss Helen both participated in this. So like I say, we just wanted to present this to you and thank you for all that you do and will continue to do for the board. So like I say, enjoy your new schedule. Very deserved. Very deserved.
Absolute pleasure.
As you know, for those that were here at last month's meeting, we introduced Mr. Judkins and Mr. Cope. This month, we want to welcome you. Like I say, I appreciate y'all being here and looking forward to the next 4 years with you. And like I say, appreciate your input and your dedication and your continued dedication to it and coming back with us. Evan, thank you again for being here.
Thank y'all for
And
having
like I
me.
say, if we had a gift, we would give you for sitting through this, but like I say, we don't, but we will say thank you. We'll find something for you.
In May, we'll give him a good gift.
We'll give him a good gift.
Diploma.
He'll have that diploma, but.
Well, we should ask Evan while he's here, give us a quick, grade on our meeting. How would you grade us?
Give it an A.
Hey.
Well, they're good.
Well
He's looking
spoken.
for the big prize.
Well spoken.
Thank you.
All right, glad to have you, Evan.
Any other things, anything else before we adjourn? All right.
Motion adjourned.
There you go, Mr. Judkins, a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor say aye. Thank y'all so much.
90 minutes. 90 minutes, start to finish.